Elf in the
Yeah, I
Kitchen.
know, I know.
But now she is the author of The Yorkie Who Sings at Midnight. So before we turn it over to Miss Jan, I have to ask Perez, what is your first thoughts when you hear dog singing in the middle of the night?
Gun.
Stop!
No.
No, I knew. I'm sorry, Jan. I knew exactly where that was headed. And in fact, my husband picked up this book, this lovely book that you sent to me in advance, which I did get a chance to actually read. And he said, "Oh, well, that would be a gone dog too, who sang at midnight." And I said, "Shush!" before you even hear the story, because I'm sure that it's a lovely piece to Angela, whom is the Yorkie who sings at midnight's story. I want to get to the singing at midnight, but also, Jan, I want to get to the part of what led you or inspired you to turn Angela's story into a book, because I like that little tidbit of how it became a book that you share in the beginning.
Well, writing a book was the farthest thing from my mind. It was just one of those things. Let's go back. Angela does sing at midnight, and I taped a couple of her songs, and I thought to myself, this would make a great little story. So I typed up a little kind of an essay on Facebook, and I titled it "The Yorkie Who Sings at Midnight." And I got a response from a gal that I know only like tangentially, and part of the book is dedicated to her. Not dedicated, but acknowledgement. And she said, you really need to turn this into a book. And I thought, I can't turn this into a book. I don't have enough material. Then it just stuck with me. So I started thinking about it more and more and more. And it sort of grew. I couldn't let go of the idea. I'm a member of the Mississippi Writers Guild. So I contacted Susan Marquez, and I said, I've got this idea. Can we meet and let you read what I've written so far and see what you think? And we did meet, and she said, you absolutely have to turn this into a book, and I will support you the whole way. And Susan is the president of the Mississippi Writers Guild, so I felt very supported. And sure enough, she did. I went home and I started writing. It just sort of, all the book just poured out. I think I wrote almost the entire book in one night. So I sent what I had to Susan, and actually we had emails that crossed. She sent me an email and made some suggestions about how she thought the book could go. I sent her exactly what she had suggested prior to getting her email. So that's how much in tune we were. And the rest is history. I mean, it was just a question then of editing and refining and finding a printer and taking that leap of faith that, and the artist, oh my goodness, that's a whole story in itself. And when I'll quit talking about this and you can ask about him.
No, you're fine. I was like, yeah, the illustrations are absolutely phenomenal, and I do want to get to that. In fact, I thought to myself, Jan, I need to know Caleb James, and because I feel like he's still in high school, or he was whenever this book was done. But I feel like your book, The Yorkie Who Sings at Midnight, I mean, it's not about any. We all love, if we have fur babies, we love them, and sometimes we know that they are individual personalities, and we look at them as individual beings for sure. But sometimes we forget that the sea of fur families everywhere, or fur animals everywhere, are also individual beings that have sort of their own story. And Angela's story doesn't necessarily start out with the warmest. And, it ends up being, to me, this book is a love letter not only to Angela by sharing her story, which is your Yorkie that you adopted, but it's also a call to action or an opportunity to look at fostering animals from a different perspective, because sometimes we sweep that under the rug and don't think about, their individual lives and maybe some of the hardships that certain animals find themselves in. So share I don't give the book away, but just what inspired you to share Angela's story after she found your home as her permanent home, forever home?
Well, my husband, Big Solid, has always wanted a Yorkie. And we've always had little dogs for years and years, and always adopted. And I was scrolling through the ARF pages and rescue pages the other day, a few months ago, and I saw this little Yorkie, and she was down at Doc Sylvia's on Monroe Street, and I thought, oh my goodness, she had a cataract, and she looked a little older. So I inquired about her, and she was being fostered, and she was an older Yorkie. She had been part of a rescue that ARF did of a hoarding house, a house where dogs were being hoarded. Several dogs, and all of them in horrible shape. Angela was one of them. But when I saw her, I said, she's ours. And so I got in touch with ARF and Pippa and the foster mom, and within a few days, she came to us. Now she's got a lot of issues physically, but I tell you what, her little spirit, shoot, I'll start crying. Her little spirit is so strong that she writes her own story, which is actually the first part of the book. And then, like you said, the second part of the book is really a call to action for folks who love animals, who want to make a difference and don't know how. So we hope that we inspire people to do that.
And one way you too in the book, which is the Yorkie Who Sings at Midnight, is you highlight the Animal Rescue Fund, which I think you used ARF, as some would know that as, of Mississippi. Right. So quickly, what's the good work that they do, and why would they be a good place to go if we were looking to adopt or to foster a pet?
Jackson has several rescue shelters, and ARF is one of them, and No Kill Shelter on Main Street. They have several. They rescue the dogs that need the most help. All of the rescue groups do, but this is such a large rescue shelter, and it's also a no kill shelter. No dog is euthanized, and all efforts are made to cure, to heal, even the most challenging cases. Not only physical issues, but also behavioral issues. Dogs that have been abused and are in need a lot of care. I remember when I first started volunteering there, I sat in a kennel with a dog and read to him every day because he was so scared, and he finally came out of his shell. That's the sort of thing that ARF inspires, and rescue shelters that are dedicated to rescuing the least of these. So that's my story with ARF and ARF's message to the world, actually.
Jan, I feel like one decent thing that came out of the pandemic was this highlight on families starting to foster more animals or even looking to adopt, because we were spending more time at home. We just recognized the relationship and the bond that, a pet can bring a family. But too often, too, the ones that we sort of gravitate towards, especially if we have younger children, are the younger in the pets, from the puppy to maybe, the mid-age or just been potty trained or crate trained. And we often forget that there are the more wiser in years fur babies there that, still have a lot to give. What would you say to those that maybe would foster, but they're like, maybe they're past the puppy stage? They're like, I can't be doing that. Maybe, hearing that there are older dogs that, still need a loving home is something that connects with them. What's the benefits of maybe going older and wiser with your fostering or adopting situation?
There are a couple of things, Rebecca, and that's a great point. Older dogs are least likely to be adopted, especially older dogs with health issues, and older dogs tend to have more health issues. But they also have a great capacity to be quieter, to be less, to be trained better, to be more able to form closer relationships. You have to spend a lot of time with the puppy and the young dog. They have to be played with. They have to be trained. But the older dogs, and they're the ones that are often just overlooked because, I don't want to adopt a 12-year-old dog because they're not going to be with us long. Well, that's true, but it's also true that they're going to give you a world of love, and you can give them a home that they need. It's just a natural thing for me. My whole career was working with the elderly in long-term care facilities. So working with older folks and people who are technically or quote unquote past their prime is just a natural calling to me. It's not for everybody because there are sacrifices, there are heartaches, that you might not have with a younger dog.
Well, if you keep the younger dog long enough, I mean, eventually they become
Yeah.
the older one that you love. And I think if anyone listening to the Metro that's had a pet who did cross over the Rainbow Bridge, I mean, I think about our precious Brutus who we had for 13 years. I trade those last couple of 1 to 2 years that were his hardest. I would never trade
Yeah.
them for anything because, the love that we shared and the care that we were able to give him and and being there till the end was something that I think, you just can't put words to it until you've sort of had that relationship, and you can always start that later in a dog's life. You don't have to have them from beginning to end, which Brutus was actually a rescue. We attained him when he was 3. But anyway, this isn't about Brutus. This is about Angela, which is the primary character or not a character, I mean she is real, the Yorkie who sings at midnight. So I got to get to the singing part. So I mean, tell me how that came about. How did her noises in the middle of the night translate to you, Jan, as music?
Well, actually, it was. Dogs snore, and so yeah, Angela has a little donut bed, right beside my bed. I don't want her in the bed with me because she doesn't see well, and I don't want her to fall off the bed. So I keep her right to the side. And right after we got her, she was sleeping, I was sleeping, and I kept hearing this sound like a hum, like, and I thought, what in the world is that? And it was her. And so I thought, gosh, dog, she's singing. And so I started recording it. And sure enough, between 12 and 4 in the morning, nearly every night, she does that. It's not a snore. It's not a cough. It's not a growl. It's a hum. So that's where that was born. It was like the most miraculous thing I've ever heard. And it just translated into her whole story.
It did. Okay, and the other part of the translating of the story is the illustrations, and they are
Oh,
spot on and beautiful. And when I read that it was done by a young man, I mean, who hadn't even made it to college yet, I was like, wow, this gentleman's got a future, at least in art, if he wants one. So how did you get connected with the illustrator?
Oh, well, that's a great story. Caleb is a freshman in high school, and he is 15 years old. The way I got in touch with him was the assistant principal at the high school where he attends, Germantown High School, is a neighbor of ours. And being that I had no idea where this book was going or if it would even come to fruition, I didn't want to spend a fortune for a professional illustrator. So I called the vice principal and I said, look, I'd like to give a kid a break if possible. Do you have any kids at your school that are talented artists? And it didn't take her 10 seconds to say, yes, ma'am, I do. And I said, well, give me a couple of names. She sent me Caleb's name. I got in touch with him, and I sent him the roughest sketch possible of what I wanted the cover to look like. In 15 minutes, he turned it around and sent me the cover. It was perfect. I wanted the illustrations to be in the same vein, in the same look as the illustrations of The Little Prince, and he nailed it. I mean, he absolutely nailed it, spot on. And what started out as 3 illustrations turned into 10. So I think the kid's just remarkable. He's straight A student, and he's just a great guy.
I totally agree. I'm holding up some of it if anyone is looking over at supertalk.fm/the Metro by chance to sort of see some of it as well as sort of
Cool.
the front of the book. Yeah, I believe that's a young man I'd like to meet, Jan. I feel like now that I know Angela, I'd like to meet her, even though maybe she is not as spunky as she used to be. I'm sure she's still full of life and excited and flourishing there with you and your husband. So how can we get the book though, Jan? I mean, is it available anywhere around town? Is it available online? How can we get it?
It is. It is available online, but it's also available at Lemuria. In fact, I met with them yesterday, and we are working on doing an event and a signing sometime after the Mississippi Book Festival, which is in August the 21st. So it's probably going to be closer to the Labor Day festivities or Labor Day weekend, or sometime in September. But I want to make sure that Caleb is there, that Angela is there if she's up for it, and so that's one option. The other option, it is at Amazon. It's also been done into an ebook, a digital book, because I thought immediately that Caleb's illustrations, as well as the story, would translate well to an ebook. So that's an option too. You can get it as a paperback. You can get it as an ebook. But right now, there are copies at Lemuria. In fact, I need to go.
And I was going to say, and part of the proceeds, if people want to know that, do go to the Animal Rescue Fund of Mississippi. I read it last night while my kids were watching America's Got Talent and doing things. So I mean, it's not a very long read, which I think is refreshing, and it's lighthearted. You'll laugh, your heartstrings will get pulled, and then you'll feel, if you've got that spot in your place to adopt or to foster, it'll bring up questions for you to sort of explore on your own if that's a good route for you, which I think everyone who has fur babies and loves them should at least once help adopt or foster another fur baby, regardless of your choice of how you get your animals. But
That's true.
yeah. So Jan, I love this. And so is there anywhere we can find you online to stay connected?
Angela's book has the Yorkie Who Sings at Midnight has its own Facebook page. You can try that. Or you can go to my page, Janne Swearengen, Janne. You can just type in Janne and you'll find me, because I'm only one of two that come up. And so that's how you can get in touch with me.
Well, you'll have to come back soon and catch us up on the Chronicles of Pondlandia, what you've been doing in the kitchen. Perez is going to hold your feet to the flames, that you're going to bring him some victuals of some kind at some point. So
okay.
The invitation
She knows me quite well.
The invitation is open, Jan, and best of luck to you with the Yorkie Who Sings at Midnight. It's a lovely book with a great message. So I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Rebecca.
All righty. You guys stick with us. From reading to running is where we're headed.